People say to me all the time, Dr. Joe, I'm in the unknown. I can't predict my future. And I always answer them the same way. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not in the known, but in the unknown. So how many people in this audience believe in the idea that the way you think has some effect on your life? Just curious. So I'm in the right place, yes?
Yes.
So all of this knowledge that you're learning this week, every time you learn something new, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. And the Nobel Prize laureate Kandel in the year 2000 found that when people learn just one bit of information, they doubled the number of connections in their brain from 1,300 connections to 2,600 connections. But if they didn't review that information, if they didn't repeat it, if they didn't think about it, those circuits were pruned apart within hours or days. So if learning is making new synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining those connections. And I now know that if you give people sound scientific information, and science is the contemporary language of mysticism. Science demystifies the mystical. And if you can combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, with a little neuroendocrinology, with a little psychoneuroimmunology, a little epigenetics, all of those new sciences point the finger at possibility. And as people begin to engage information, philosophical, theoretical knowledge, intellectual data, as they make those new connections in their brain, if they can turn to the person next to them and explain what they just learned, they're firing and wiring those circuits in their brain, installing the neurological hardware in preparation for the experience. So then when they apply what they learned, when they personalize it, when they demonstrate it in some way, they're going to have to modify their behaviors. And if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, if they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, if they can get their mind and body working together, they're going to have a new experience. And in the midst of an experience, all of your 5 senses plug you into the external environment. And as your brain is gathering all this vital sensory data, all that information rushes back to your brain, and jungles of neurons begin to organize themselves into networks. The moment those neurons string into place, reinforcing and enhancing the philosophical circuits that were made, the brain makes a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And now you are teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. We could say that knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body. And in that moment, you are embodying the truth of that philosophy, chemically instructing your body to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. And the moment you feel that emotion, you are literally signaling new genes in new ways, and you are rewriting the biological program. But if you've done it once, it means you should be able to do it again. And if you can repeat any experience over and over again, you are going to neurochemically condition your mind and body to work as one. And when you've done something so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your mind, now you're mastering that philosophy. It's innate in you. It's second nature. It's easy. It's familiar. You've practiced it so many times that you no longer have to consciously think about it. You know how you do it, but you don't even know how, because it's now a subconscious program. So our job then is to go from philosopher to initiate to master, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, from mind to body to soul, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your head, practicing with your hands, and knowing it by heart. And you and I have all the biological and neurological machinery to do this. And I can tell you right now that common people around the world are doing the uncommon. They're healing themselves of fatal diseases. reversing scars and wounds that were from past experiences, creating better lives for themselves and new opportunities, and having mystical experiences that transcend language. So what I'd like to do today is I'm going to develop concepts and ideas. And when I see you wrap your mind around that concept or idea, and you go from beta brainwave patterns to alpha brainwave patterns, I know then you're consolidating that information neurologically in your brain. And you're going to begin to fire and wire those circuits in your brain in preparation for experiences. You're going to begin to install the neurological hardware in your brain so that in your future, you can access those circuits to do something differently. How many people understand? So then if we set up the conditions in the environment and you get your behaviors to match your intentions, there should be some type of transformation in some way. And then when you walk back into your life, then your biology will be greater than the conditions in your life. So then, how many people here believe in the idea that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny? You do? Well, you think 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day. Out of those 60 to 70,000 thoughts that you think in one day, 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before. So if you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny and 90% of your thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before, then your life should stay the same. Yes or no? Yes. The same choices are going to lead to the same behaviors. Yes or no? Yes. The same behaviors are going to create the same experiences. Yes or no? Yes. Same experiences are going to produce the same emotions. Yes or no? Yes. And those same emotions are going to drive your very same thoughts. And your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, and even your genetic expression will stay the same. And there's a principle in neuroscience that says that nerve cells that fire together, wire together. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, demonstrating the same behaviors, creating the exact same experiences that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you, and you do that over and over again, I don't know, let's be conservative, 25 years, would you agree that you will begin to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature? Yes. And that finite signature is called your identity, your personality. It's the box of the brain, the most commonly fired, neurologically wired set of thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through frequent repetition. So then, how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. So the present personality who's sitting here today, called you, has created the present personal reality called your life. Yes or no? Yes. Yes. So then if you wanted to create a new personal reality, a new life, you would have to change your personality. Yes or no? Yes. Which means you're going to have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. Yes or no? Yes. You are going to have to become conscious of your unconscious habits and behaviors and become so aware of them that you don't go unconscious again. Yes or no? Yes. And then you're going to have to look at those emotions that keep you anchored to the past and decide, do these emotions belong in my future? Yes or no? Yes. So most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. You literally have to become someone else. Your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of the past. It's an artifact of everything you've learned and experienced to this moment. Are you with me still? Yes. So then if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, you're left with the old circuits of your past and you will be predictable in your life. Yes or no?
Yes.
And if feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and we can remember experiences better because we can remember how they feel, the moment you wake up in the morning and you come back to your senses and you lay in bed and you start thinking about all your problems that are connected to different people and places and conditions and things in your life, the moment you get in touch with a familiar feeling called you, you're in your past. And if those emotions are driving your thoughts and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, then you are thinking in the past. Yes or no?
Yes.
And you just told me that you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny. And if you can't think greater than how you feel, your past is your future. Yes or no?
Yes.
How you think and how you feel is called a state of being. That thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain, and feelings are the vocabulary of your body. That cycle of thinking and feeling creates your state of being. Now think about this. If your brain is a record of the past, hardwired to be a certain way because most people are thinking, acting, and feeling the same way, and they have emotions that they've become so familiar with that they don't even know that they feel guilty. It just is how they feel. They don't even know that they're unhappy because that's how they define themselves. And if those emotions are driving their thoughts, turning on the same circuits in their brain, firing in the same exact sequence, patterns, and combinations, firing and wiring those circuits to produce certain chemicals for them to feel more suffering and more guilt. The moment they feel more guilt and more suffering, they say, wow, I'm feeling pretty bad, so they think more thoughts equal to how they feel. Are you with me still? Yeah. And the cycle of thinking and feeling creates their state of being. And the redundancy of that process conditions the body to subconsciously become the mind. And now their entire state of being is in the past. Are you with me still? Yes. And they can't go to a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. Now, your body is your unconscious mind. And it does not know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion that you are creating by thought alone. So the body is believing it's in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And if the body's been conditioned to be the mind, the body literally is in the past. How many people understand? So then to change then would mean then you'd have to be greater than your body. Yes or no? Yeah. Greater than the emotions that keep you anchored to the past, and greater than those habits that keep running you unconsciously into the same future. Are you with me still? Yeah. You've all had experiences in your life that have produced a strong emotion. Yes or no? Yes. Whether it's a trauma or betrayal or a shock or something amazing that happens. The moment you feel differently inside of you, you pay attention to what caused it outside of you. And the moment that happens, the brain takes a snapshot, and that's called a memory. So the stronger the emotional quotient from an experience, the greater the long-term memory. Yes or no? Yes. So then people have a reaction to someone or something in their life, and they don't know how to control their emotional reaction. And they allow that emotional reaction to linger for hours or days. You know what that's called? That's called a mood. What's wrong with you? I'm in a mood. Really? What's wrong? I thought you'd never ask. I had this thing happen to me 5 days ago, and I'm memorizing my emotional reaction. Yes or no? Yes. And if you keep that same refractory period of chemicals running for weeks or months, that's called a temperament. Why is he so bitter? Why is he so angry? I don't know. Let's ask him. What's wrong with you? I had this thing happen to me 7 months ago, and I'm having one long emotional reaction. Yes or no? Yes. And if you keep that same refractory period of emotions running for years on end, that's called a personality trait. And most people's personalities are defined by their past experiences. And they wear their emotions on their sleeve because that's who they think they are. Are you with me still? Yeah. So then you say to them, oh, buddy, why are you this way? And they'll say, I'm this way because this experience happened to me 10 years ago. Which, from a biological standpoint, it means I had an event in my life that altered me, and I have not been able to change since that moment. Yes or no? Yes. So then think about this. The latest research in memory, the latest research tells us that 50% of what you talk about in your past isn't even the truth. You make it up. That memory is creative. So many people are reliving a past they didn't even have. How many people understand?
Yes.
So then you wake up in the morning and you go, wait, I don't feel anything. Wait. Oh, God, I feel a little guilty and sad. Okay, now I'm ready to start my day. Yes or no?
Yeah.
And so then the moment you feel that emotion, then you're in your past, because emotions are the record of the past. Yes or no?
Yes.
And if those emotions are driving your thoughts and driving your behaviors, you are going to be predictable in your life, because your past is going to be your future. How many people understand now?
Yes.
So you think an insecure thought, you feel insecure, yes or no?
Yes.
The moment you feel insecure, the brain's checking in with the body and says, oh, you're really feeling insecure, so you're going to generate more insecure thoughts, yes or no?
Yes.
Which are going to make more chemicals for you to feel insecure.
Yes.
And then the moment you feel insecure, those feelings are going to drive your thoughts, yes or no?
Yes.
And so then you're going to continuously hardwire your brain, because you keep thinking the same way, and you continuously condition your body emotionally into the past. How many people understand?
Yes.
So then your entire state of being is in the past. And if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, then your past will be your future. How many people are understanding?
Yes.
So then to change then would be greater than your body. Greater than the body conditioned into the past. Are you with me still?
Yes.
So then you wake up in the morning. The moment you come back to your senses, you glance over to the person laying next to you and you say, oh God, how did I get here? Who is that? Oh yeah, I'm back in this reality. Oh, then you go, wait, let me think about all my problems. Oh, now I'm starting to feel like myself. And then what does everybody do after that? What do? I'm going to tell you. You reach for yourself. And then you check your WhatsApp. Then you check your Twitter, then you check your Facebook, then you check your text, then you check your one email, then you check your other email, and then you check your Instagram, and then you take a picture of your feed, post it on Facebook, and then you tweet something, and now you're really connected to your past, present reality. Yes or no?
Yes.
Then you get up out of the same side of the bed, because you sleep on the same side. You put your slippers on, you scratch yourself the same way, you put your robe on, and you have the thought of the toilet. And the next thing you know, your body follows your mind right to the toilet. Yes or no?
Yes.
And then when you're on the toilet, you have this vision of your future, the coffee maker. And the next thing you know, your body follows your mind to the coffee maker. Yes or no?
Yes.
And then while you're drinking your coffee, you have the vision of the shower. And the next thing you know, you're naked and you're in the shower. And you're washing yourself the same routine way. And then while you're in the shower, you have this incredible vision of yourself dressed. And what you're going to wear, and there you are, you're dressed. And then you walk back out into the kitchen and you drink that coffee out of your mug. You know, that one that nobody touches. And then you eat cereal facing the same way in the same chair with the same spoon. And then, of course, you check a few emails, you watch the news to remind you how bad the world is. Get in the car, back up, drive to work the same way. See the same people that push the same emotional buttons. The people use their boss to reaffirm their addiction to judgment. They use their enemies to reaffirm their addiction to hatred. They use their coworkers to reaffirm their addiction to competition. They use their friends to reaffirm their addiction to suffering. They use their parents to reaffirm their addiction to guilt. And then they do the same things that they've memorized and can do so well. And then they finish work. They drive home. They stop at the grocery store. They walk into the grocery store. They turn right, because 95% of the people that enter a grocery store turn right. So you turn right. Then you buy the same food. You go home, you cook the same meal, you eat the same food, you sit in the same chair, you watch the same favorite television shows. You get done, you call your sister and you complain about how bad your day was, and then she complains back, and then you complain to her. And then all of a sudden you get ready for bed. And you put on your lotions, your potions, your creams, you brush your teeth, you floss, you get in bed, and you go to sleep. You wake up the next morning, and here we go again. Yes or no?
Yes.
So did your brain change at all that day?
No.
We could say that you were thinking the same thoughts, performing the same actions, living by the same emotions, but secretly expecting your life to change. So if a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through frequent repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your mind. Would you agree then, the moment you wake up and you've been doing that for 20 years, your body's on autopilot and it's dragging you into a predictable future based on what you did in the past? Yes or no?
Yes.
And we can take your past and lift it up and set it on your future. And you know what that's called? Karma. That's it. Because you're living the same life every single day and you've lost your will for a program. And 95% of most people by the time they're 35 years old is a set of automatic programs, automatic thoughts, emotional reactions, unconscious behaviors and beliefs and perceptions and attitudes that function just like a computer program. And now they're going to try to change their life with the 5% of their conscious mind working against 95% of what they've programmed subconsciously. Are you with me still?
Yes.
And they can think positively all they want. They can say, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. And that thought's going to stop right at the brainstem and never make it to the body because the body's programmed into the past. Are you with me still?
Yes.
So then, if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, the moment you wake up in the morning and you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same thing at the exact same time every single day, it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. Now your personal reality is creating your personality because it's your environment that's causing you to think and feel equal to everything that you know. Come on, are you with me?
Yes.
And as long as you're thinking and feeling equal to everything that you know, you keep creating more of the same. How many people understand?
Yes.
So every single person in your life, every single thing, every single object, every single place has a neurological network in your brain that's mapped because you've experienced them. Yes or no?
Yes.
So the moment you see your boss, the moment you see your partner, the moment you're in your house, the moment you're driving your car, the moment you're reacting to someone or something, the moment you see that person, it's your external environment that's turning on different circuits in your brain, causing you to think equal to everything that you know. So then as long as you're thinking equal to everything that you know, you keep creating more of the same. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then to change, to truly change, is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the circumstances in your life, to be greater than the conditions in your world. And every great person in history understood this. So then the moment you are being defined by a vision of the future, and that vision is greater than the conditions in your environment, then you would have to agree with me, you're no longer in your past, and you're being greater than the conditions in your environment. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then, if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, and what does it take to be defined by a vision of the future? Number one, a clear intention. Come on, you've all done this already. How many people in this audience got a wild idea? You asked yourself, what would it be like to be wealthy, to be healthy, to be free, to be in a new relationship? The moment you asked that frontal lobe question, all of a sudden the creative center of the brain turned on. And this is what you did. You said, oh my God, let me just be open to an answer. And the frontal lobe has connections to all other parts of the brain. And like a great symphony leader, it begins to call up different networks of neurons that are already mapped in your brain from the things you've learned and the things you've experienced in your life. And it seamlessly pieces them together and you get a vision. And that's called intention. You're selecting a new potential in the quantum field that you haven't experienced yet. Yes or no?
Yes.
And to the passionate person, the moment they have that vision, the thought becomes the experience. And the end product of an experience is an emotion. And they start to feel the emotions of their future before it's happened. Are you with me still?
Yes.
And the moment you feel that emotion, you're raising your energy and your body is getting a sampling, a taste of the future. And when you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, you just changed your state of being from living in your past present reality to living in your future present reality. Yes or no?
Yes.
But that's the beginning. Because everybody in this audience sat down and said, okay, what choices do I have to make? Let me review them in my mind. Yes or no?
Yes.
Then you said, what behaviors do I have to demonstrate? What are the things that I have to do? And reviewed those. Yes or no?
Yes.
What goals do I want to accomplish? What experiences await for me? And as you began to write those goals and experiences down, you started to feel more elevated. Yes or no?
Yes.
And then you did something really brilliantly. You wrote down the thoughts that you no longer wanted to think, and you became conscious of those unconscious thoughts that said, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never do it, it didn't work in the past, I'll start tomorrow, I don't feel like it. And you became so conscious of those unconscious thoughts, they would never slip by your awareness unchecked. Yes or no?
Yes.
And then you said, what choices do I have to stay away from? And you began to become conscious of those unconscious choices you've been making all day, and you became so conscious of them that you wouldn't go unconscious again. And then you said, what behaviors and things that I'm going to stay away from and change, and you reviewed them. What experiences do I know that I have to stay away from in my environment, and what emotions will bring me to a lower denominator? And every day you reviewed who you no longer wanted to be and who you did want to be. And over again, you kept doing it. And you know what you did? You gave up your social engagements. You may not have slept in. You might have been a little bit more passionate because you were putting your attention and your energy in the future instead of in the past. Yes or no? Yes. And over you did that, and all of a sudden, you started getting signals in your world. Little synchronicities, little coincidences, little signs that your environment was reflecting back to you that you were on the right path. And then there came a moment where you knew it was going to happen. And you took your foot off the gas. And the moment you did that, you wanted the experience to come to you, and it was no longer about the material thing you created or the wealth. It was the fact that you were able to do it. Yes or no?
Yes.
And the moment that experience came, you felt the emotion and you felt more whole. And you were more giving and more loving and more caring and more present and more forgiving in your life because you felt better about yourself. Yes or no?
Yes.
So now, here's my question. Think of a time in your life where you were being defined by a vision of the future, you saw it, and it didn't happen. What happened then? You got a clear intention, you got inspired, you felt the elevated emotion, you were in a whole new state of being. And then you know what happened? I'll tell you. You got busy. You didn't have enough time for it. You know, you had people to see and places to go and things to do and parties and dinners. And you got distracted by your external environment. Or you just didn't feel like it one day because you were tired or you had a headache or you had a fight with somebody 3 days ago. And all of that means then is that it was your body, your environment, and time that talked you out of that future. And the moment you shrunk back into mediocrity, you found people in your life that did the same, and people use each other to reaffirm their addiction to suffering and victimization. And we call that normal. Yes or no?
Yes.
So the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And here's the old self, and here's the new self, and you got to cross a river. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready, because it's going to feel uncomfortable. There's going to be some uncertainty. It's going to feel unfamiliar. It's going to become unpredictable. And the moment you say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to change, and you decide to make those changes, you just stepped into that river. And if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, the servant is now the master. Now the body's running the show. And guess what happens the moment you step into the unknown? The body says, whoa, this doesn't feel right. And it starts sending signals back to the brain. And you start to hear voices in your head. And those voices are, start tomorrow. This doesn't feel right. It's my mother's fault. It's my ex-husband's fault. This is too hard. What's wrong with me? The analytical mind starts going, and it's the same thoughts that you've always had. It's just happening behind the scenes of your awareness, but now you're conscious of them. And if you respond to that same thought as if you always do, the same thought's going to lead to the same choice. The same choice is going to lead to the same behavior. The same behavior is going to create the same experience. The same experience is going to produce the same emotion. And then people say, this feels right. No, it feels familiar. Going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, the hormonal, the genetic death of the old self. And people say to me all the time, Dr. Joe, I'm in the unknown. I can't predict my future. And I always answer them the same way. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not in the known, but in the unknown. And becoming comfortable in that place is the mastery. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain and put your attention behind? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate in one day? One lifetime. And as you begin to rehearse those behaviors in your mind, and you're truly present, the brain does not know the difference between the experience going on out there and the experience going on in here. And now you're installing the neurological hardware to look like the experience has already occurred. And now your brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it is a map to the future. And so then, the last part is the tough part. Because can you teach your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest? That means you cannot wait for your wealth to feel abundance and worthiness. You can't wait for your success to feel empowerment and gratitude. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love. You can't wait for your healing to feel wholeness. You can't wait for at a mystical moment to feel awe. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of us to give us relief from the emptiness or the pain we feel inside of us. The moment we feel better inside of us, we pay attention to whoever or whatever caused that, and that's called a memory. That's Newtonian physics, cause and effect. The quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. The moment you start feeling worthy and abundant, you are magnetizing your wealth. The moment you are empowered in a state of gratitude, you are walking towards your success. The moment you're in love with yourself and in love with life, you'll create an equal. The moment you are in awe of the moment, you're going to have a mystical experience. And the moment you feel whole and complete is when your healing begins. And that's causing an effect. And there isn't a person in this room that's so special to be excluded from that equation. How many people understand? Yeah. Can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already occurred? Yes. Is that possible? Latest research in neuroplasticity and neuroscience says you can change your brain just by thinking. And can you fall in love with a future potential in the quantum field? And how many potentials exist in the quantum field? A few? Infinite? Yes. And can you begin to emotionally embrace that future reality before it's made manifest to such a degree that your body, as the unconscious mind, begins to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes in new ways to change your body to look like the experience has already occurred? Is that possible? Yes. Latest research in epigenetics says it's absolutely possible. Now think about this. There's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the experience has already happened. Now your brain and body are no longer living in the past present reality. They're living in a future present reality. Yes or no?
Yes.
And so then, if there's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the experience has already occurred, you get to relax. Because the experience is going to find you. And it's going to come in a way that you least expect. Why? Because if you can expect it, it's nothing new. It's got to rock your world. It's got to catch you off guard. It has to leave no doubt that what you did inside of you produced some effect outside of you. And the moment you correlate the changes you made inside of you with the effect you produced outside of you, you're going to pay attention to what you did and you're going to do it again. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
So then that's called empowerment. So then think about this. Would you agree then that if the environment controls most people's thoughts and feelings, if most people are thinking and feeling in the same way they condition their body to become the mind, and if they're on a program living in a predictable future based on what they did in the past and they're never in the present moment, and I assert when you're not in the present moment, you're running a program. Would you agree then it might be a good idea for you when you're defining yourself as a vision of the future that you sit down and close your eyes and disconnect from your external environment? Yes or no?
Yes.
Play some soft music in the background, plug your ears so there's less sensory information coming into your brain. Yes or no?
Yes.
Sit your body down and make it stay right there. I'll let you know when it's time to get up. And would you agree then if you're not smelling anything or tasting anything or eating anything and you're not experiencing anything in your environment and feeling, then all of a sudden your inner world is going to start to become more real than your outer world? Yes or no?
Yes.
And if you can surrender your body into the present moment, then you would have to agree then you are defining your life by thought alone, and it's no longer your outer environment controlling how you think and feel. Now you're changing your inner environment to be greater than your outer environment, your body and time. How many people understand? And that's what we use in the model of change, and it's called meditation. So then imagine the word meditation literally means to become familiar with. That's what it means. So then if you're sitting in your meditation and you're becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts and they're becoming so familiar to you, are you in a meditation? No. Yes or no? Yes, you are. To know thyself. But those thoughts have been happening behind the scenes of your awareness the entire time, but most people are too distracted by their external environment. So then if you're sitting in a meditation and you're becoming conscious and familiar of your automatic habits and behaviors, what comes out of your mouth, if you're sitting there becoming so conscious of those unconscious programs, you would have to agree with me, you probably won't go as unconscious again, yes or no?
Yes.
And if you are becoming aware that, oh my God, I've been suffering and feeling guilty and a victim the last 30 years of my life, and I didn't even know that I felt this way, would you agree the moment you can observe those states of mind and body, you're no longer the program. You're the consciousness observing the program, and you're beginning to objectify your subjective self. You are seeing yourself through the eyes of someone else, and you're disengaging from the biological program. Yes or no?
Yes.
And what if you then said, what is the greatest expression of myself that I can present to the world? What's the vision of my future? And you began to fire and wire those circuits in your brain, deciding what thoughts you do want to pay attention to, installing the hardware, sitting down and rehearsing the choices and behaviors you're going to make in one day. The act of mental rehearsal then begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain. And if you keep repeating it, the hardware becomes a software program. And all of a sudden, who knows? You may think like an unlimited person. You may act like an abundant person because you installed the circuits, did you not?
Yes.
You primed your brain for the future. And if you kept doing that over and over again, will it begin to become familiar to you? Yes or no?
Yes.
And if every day you were cultivating an elevated emotion and teaching your body what your future would feel like ahead of the actual experience, if you kept doing that over and over again, will it become familiar to you?
Yes.
And if you were trading suffering for freedom, pain for joy, and you kept creating those emotions, it would get easier for you to feel that way, yes or no?
Yes.
And if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, when you got up from your meditation and you were able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, get ready. Because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law. And it will come in a way that you have never anticipated or expected. Because if you can anticipate it, predict it, or expect it, it's nothing new. It's the unknown. And when the experience comes and surprises you, and you feel the energy and the emotion from that experience, it's going to inspire you to want to create again. Yes or no?
Yes.
And you will look back at your entire past when that experience falls out of the sky, and you won't want to change one thing in your past because it brought you to the present moment. And that's the moment the past no longer exists. How many people understand? They did an experiment where they took a group of healers and expert prayers, and prayer and healing is a skill. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then they set these 3 vials of DNA right in front of these expert healers and prayers. And they said to these people, now there's DNA in these vials, and what we want you to do with your mind, with your intent, is we want you to see this DNA wind and unwind in your mind, and keep having the intent to see the DNA wind and unwind. So they practiced it over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. When they checked the DNA, guess what happened? Nothing. Intention did nothing to change the DNA. So then they said, okay, what we want you to do now is we want you to create an elevated emotion like compassion, loving kindness, freedom, joy, gratitude. And we want you to just radiate this energy beyond your body and just keep doing it. We want to see if it'll affect the DNA. They did it over and over and over again, sustaining that elevated state. When they checked the DNA, guess what happened? Nothing. An elevated emotion did nothing to change the DNA. But when they said to them, we want you to see the DNA unwind and then get in touch with the feeling of how it would feel if it actually unwound ahead of the experience. Are you with me still?
Yes.
25% of the DNA unwound. You see, the thoughts that you think are the electrical charge in the quantum field. And the feelings that you emote are the magnetic charge in the quantum field. And how you think and how you feel broadcasts an electromagnetic signature that influences every single atom in your life. The thought sends the signal out, and the feeling draws the event back to you. So then the question is, what are you broadcasting on a moment-to-moment basis in your life? Because if you're walking around in lack or suffering, you're saying into the unified field, oh, infinite universal intelligence, giver of life, I am broadcasting suffering into the field. Bring me an experience of suffering, but bring it in a way that I least expect, that surprises me and leaves no doubt that it's come from you, so I can suffer a little bit more. Yes or no? So we are not punished for our sins. We are punished by our sins. And sin is an attitude. And an attitude is how you think and feel. How many people are with me? Think about this. Most people, then, their entire state of being is in their past, and their energy is in the past. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you have all of your attention on your emotions that keep you anchored to the past, then all of your energy's in the past. Yes or no?
Yes.
And if you wake up in the morning and you start thinking about all the people you have to see and the places you have to go and the things you have to do in your known familiar reality, and you keep your attention on all those knowns, then your attention is projecting into a predictable known future. Yes or no?
Yes.
And that means then you have very little energy in the present moment to create with, because all of your energy is either in the past or the future, and no energy in the present moment. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then I want to talk about the sweet spot of the generous present moment, because all potentials in the quantum field exist in the present moment. And only when you are present in the moment will you be able to create a new future. Are you with me still?
Yes.
And you know when someone's present in your life because they're paying attention to you. Yes or no?
Yes.
And you know when someone's not present in your life because they're not paying attention to you. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then here is that infinite intelligence that's living within you and all around you, the quantum field, the unified field, whatever you want to call it. It's both personal and universal. It's within you and all around you. It's the very intelligence that's keeping your heart beating and digesting your food and organizing all those trillions of functions while you sit here and have a free will. It's the giver of life. But it's also the same intelligence that's creating the ghost nebulae, causing flowers to bloom. It's personal and universal. It's within you and all around you. You with me still?
Yes.
And it is omnipresent. It is always present. Why? Because it is in a realm beyond space and time. In that realm, it is completely present. So then, here it is, right here. And most people's attention is on somebody, someone, something, somewhere, and sometime, and they're never looking towards it. And because all their attention is being put on becoming a somebody, being someone, owning something, living somewhere, being in some future time, they never face off with this intelligence because they're never present with it. And we've done over 8,000 brain scans. And I can tell you without a doubt, that you are at your absolute best when you get beyond yourself. That the moment a person goes from a somebody to a nobody, from a someone to a no one, from something to nothing, from somewhere to nowhere, from some time to no time, that's the moment they take their attention off their outer world and they line up in the present moment, their pure consciousness. And now the observer, who's observing all of this into life, says, oh, you're present with me? Now I can see what you want to create. Are you with me still?
Yes.
So then if you want to hide the divine somewhere for the human being, the best place to hide it is within, because they'll look everywhere else for it except within. So then, in the research we've done, and we've done over 8,000 brain scans, and we know the moment that person is going to get beyond themselves, we can predict it now. We also know that with the moment they start opening their heart, and we've measured this thousands and thousands of times, when they have a coherent brain and a coherent heart, they're changing their whole electromagnetic field. And we start every meditation with an elevated emotion. And as our students begin to create those elevated emotions of their future, we're measuring what it does to their heart. And it turns out their heart all of a sudden becomes very coherent. It becomes very organized. And when you live by resentment and anger and frustration and impatience, the heart becomes very incoherent, just like the brain. And so the moments the heart starts to resonate in orderliness, it begins to produce a measurable magnetic field. And that field can be up to 8 meters wide. That's energy. And that energy carries an intent, a message, because all frequency carries information. And all of a sudden, they are beginning to broadcast a whole new signature into the field. And when they do that for an extended period of time, they have an effect on matter. They are now creating their future because they're more energy than matter, more wave, less particle. So then what is the biggest reason people give up on their dreams? They give up on their dreams because of the hormones of stress. And stress is when your body is knocked out of homeostasis. Stress is when your body is knocked out of balance. The stress response is what your body innately does to return itself back to order. So then, if a deer is in the woods and it notices a pack of coyotes, the moment the deer perceives the threat in its external environment, it mobilizes enormous amounts of energy and resources to take care of its body and its environment. Yes or no?
Yes.
So the moment it taps those vital resources, it begins to produce a rush of adrenaline and chemistry to begin to cause it to run, fight, or hide. Yes or no?
Yes.
The sympathetic nervous system switches on, the pupils dilate, salivary juices shut off, digestive enzymes shut off, heart rate increases, respiratory rate increases, blood is sent to the extremities, glucose is mobilized, and now the body is tapping its vital resources in its environment. Yes or no?
Yes.
And that's very adaptive for the short term, because if a deer outruns the coyotes, it goes back to grazing 15 minutes later and returns back to balance. Are you with me still?
Yes.
Now, human beings have those same exact mechanisms. But what if it's not a predator? What if it's your coworker sitting right in the cubicle next to you who you've had some tough experiences in the past with? Would you agree then? Some people turn on that stress response all day long. And if you turn on that stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease. because no organism can live in emergency mode for an extended period of time. Are you with me still?
Yes.
Now, those hormones of stress are very addictive. The body gets a rush of adrenaline, a rush of energy, and the brain becomes aroused. And people become addicted to the emotions of stress, to anger, aggression, hatred, fear, anxiety, worry, guilt, shame, suffering, unworthiness. They're all created from the hormones of stress. So then people begin to use the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their addiction to some emotion. They need the bad job. They need the poor relationship. They need difficult circumstances in their life because it makes them feel something. Are you still with me?
Yes.
So if the hormones of stress are highly addictive and people use the conditions in their environment to reaffirm their addiction to those emotions, is it possible they become addicted to the life they don't even like? Yes or no?
Yes.
And listen to this. We can turn on the stress response just by thought alone because of the size of our brain. In other words, out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, people will select the worst case scenario when they're living in survival. Are you with me still? So then the moment they select that worst case scenario in their future and they begin to emotionally embrace it, their body's believing it's living in that future reality and they're knocking their brain and body out of physiological balance just by thought alone. Yes or no?
Yes.
Or they unfold a past bitter memory that's tattooed in the recesses of their gray matter, and like magic, they bring it to life, and they keep sending the same chemical signals to their body, and their body's literally in the past. Yes or no?
Yes.
So then if you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the hormones of stress are highly addictive, is it possible that people become addicted to their own thoughts?
Yes.
Yes or no? So then it's a scientific fact that the long-term effects of the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease. So then, if we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and those chemicals of stress push the genetic buttons that create disease, then is it possible that your thoughts can make you sick?
Yes.
So then if your thoughts could make you sick, is it possible that your thoughts could make you well?
Yes.
So then when you and I react to some condition in our external environment, we draw from this invisible field of vital energy surrounding our body, and we turn it into chemistry, and the field around the body begins to shrink. Now we become more matter, then less energy, more particle, and less wave. And the moment you feel more like matter, every single time, people will always try to control, predict, and force outcomes in their life and fight for results because they are matter trying to change matter. Are you with me still?
Yeah.
And the very chemicals of stress heighten our senses and we become materialists in our world. In other words, if we can't see it, we can't smell it, we can't taste it, we can't feel it, we can't hear it, it doesn't exist. And because people spend 70% of the time living in survival, it makes sense then that they're always focusing on matter. They're narrowing their focus on the particle in quantum physics, and they're never paying attention to the wave of possibility. Are you with me still?
Yes.
So under the hormones of stress then, we try to control everything in our life, and every single person, every single problem, every single thing, every single place has a neurological network in our brain. And when the brain becomes aroused, we shift our attention from one person to one thing, to one problem, to one place. And we do that, we keep activating these circuits. And if you keep doing that for an extended period of time, like a lightning storm, the brain begins to function incoherently. And when the brain functions incoherently, we function incoherently. And when the brain isn't working right, we're not working right. Are you with me still?
Yes.
People then switch their brain on in emergency mode, and now they can't switch it off. And no new information can enter the nervous system that isn't equal to the emotion that they're experiencing. Why? Because if you're being chased by Mr. Big, it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to sit down and go within and create. It's not a time to open your heart and trust in the unknown. It's not a time to communicate. It's a time to run, fight, and hide. And people spend the majority of their life that way. How many people are understanding?
Yes.
So then, listen, we live in a realm, this three-dimensional reality, where there's infinite space. How big is space in this three-dimensional reality? It goes on forever, yes? It's eternal. So then we experience time by moving through space. So if I'm going to work from here to the wall, it's going to take me a certain amount of time to get there, yes or no?
Yes.
So then if people are living as materialists, defined by their body in space and time, in their environment and time, then it makes sense then they will reach their goals. Yeah, they'll get that mansion, but it'll take them 30 years to pay it off. It's going to take some time. Yeah, they'll get the new relationship, but they're going to have to go on Match.com and look at body parts over and over again and go on a lot of dates and finally find the right person. And then, of course, then they'll have the dream to buy the house, but then they got to get the right job. So then they got to put in their resumes and go on a lot of different interviews to settle for the job they don't even like. And all of it's going to take time. And at the end of 30 years, they'll pay it off, but they'll be too tired to enjoy it because it takes time in this three-dimensional reality. Are you with me still?
Yes.
And yet, the heart, the moment the person goes into that stress response, beats incoherently as well. And all of a sudden, the brain and heart are out of rhythm. But what if then a person had the ability to find the present moment? And we can predict this now over and over again. And all of a sudden, instead of thinking about the predictable future or remembering the familiar past, they labored for the present moment. And what if then, instead of narrowing their focus on the problem, on the threat in their external environment, you taught them how to take their attention off of matter, off of objects and people and places and things, and find the generous present moment and go from a somebody to a nobody, from someone to no one, from something to nothing, from somewhere to nowhere, from sometime to nowhere. That would be the moment that they would begin to disinvest their energy out of this three-dimensional reality. And all of a sudden now, they become pure consciousness. And as they begin to move through the eye of the needle and become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, if they keep surrendering into that unified field, they'll go from a somebody to nobody to the consciousness of everybody. From the consciousness of someone to the consciousness of no one to the consciousness of everyone. From the consciousness of something to the consciousness of nothing to the consciousness of everything. From the consciousness of some time to the consciousness of no time to the consciousness of every time. The consciousness of somewhere to nowhere to everywhere. Isn't that the quantum field, the unified field? Come on, are you with me?
Yes.
The quantum field is an invisible field of information that exists beyond space and time. And when we create from that place, we no longer have to go anywhere to get it. In fact, when there's a vibrational match between your energy and some potential in the quantum field, you will collapse time and you will draw the experience to you. Because Einstein said, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle, that energy affects matter. Are you with me still?
Can you repeat it?
And the moment that happens, when you become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, all of a sudden you're not thinking about that person or that problem or that thing, and your brain waves slow down from beta to alpha, and you move right out of your analytical mind. All of a sudden, different compartments of the brain that were once subdivided, if you're no longer thinking about those things, all of a sudden they start to synchronize. They start to unify. They start to integrate. The front of the brain starts talking to the back of the brain. The right side of the brain starts talking to the left side of the brain. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, the brain starts moving into this psychic union. We've seen it over and over again. And the moment those two halves of the brain come together, the union of polarity, the union of duality, the union of opposites or separation is called wholeness and love. Are you with me still?
Yes.
At the same exact time, all of a sudden the heart starts going into coherence and it starts to produce a measurable magnetic field. Now they're no longer drawing from the field. They're contributing to the field. And that field begins to expand. That energy is a frequency, and that frequency carries information. And now they lay their intent on that energy, and they're broadcasting a whole new signature into the field. Are you with me still?
Yes.
And watch, we see people sitting in their meditation, and all of a sudden we start to see their brain going into that pattern. And we just say to the neuroscientists that come and study our work, she's going to pop. What do you mean? She's going to pop. Just watch. And all of a sudden, when that brain goes into that kind of coherence, and all of a sudden, she feels so whole and so complete and so in love with life that it's impossible to want. How can you want when you're whole? And in that moment, the heart gets super coherent, and I can walk around and look at that person, and there are tears of joy rolling down her face. She is connected to the unified field, and that field is intelligent love and loving intelligence. And if you run right into it and you merge with it, when you come back to your senses, you take a piece of it with you. You become more willful. It has an amazing will. You become more mindful. It has an infinite mind. You become more conscious. It is an infinite consciousness. You become more giving. It's a giver of life. You become more loving. It's a loving intelligence. Its nature becomes your nature. Its mind becomes your mind. And all of a sudden now, you don't have to do anything because it is your state of being.